Access granted.
Isle lore is full of gaps, contradictions, and speculation. Nowhere is that more obvious than at the very beginning. Before the story starts to take shape, it exists as fragments. A company name, a warehouse fire in 1975, a night guard named Charles Chuck. All of this exists within an unreleased project called Penumbra. Now, on their own, those details don't really explain much, but if you piece them together, they're actually the earliest trail that this lore starts to leave behind. Penumbra is one of the strangest starting points in Isle lore because almost everything surrounding it comes to us in pieces. The only thing we have to work with are official teasers from the Badorkbee developers. These include damaged records, burnt documents, and scattered references that seem to point towards the same incident without ever fully explaining it. There is clearly something there. The problem is figuring out where the evidence ends and where the assumption begins. So rather than forcing a complete story out of incomplete clues, I want to start with the clearest trail we have. The official material tied to Penumbra, the earliest signs of B Corp, the 1975 warehouse fire, and Charles Chuck, one of the only real names that we can place at the center of it all. Not the full story, just the beginning of one. The clearest and earliest piece of evidence is the image labeled Project 4 Penumbra. The image shows a machine marked with the B Corporation name wired directly into the head of a mannequin. Across that mannequin is the now familiar eye symbol, a mark that feels less like decoration and more like a warning. At minimum, this confirms a few things. Penumbra is directly tied to B Corporation. Mannequins are central to it, and whatever this project was, it was not ordinary production work. What this image does not confirm is just as important. It does not explain whether these mannequins were being controlled, observed, modified, or used for something even worse. It does not tell us what Penumbra really was. It only tells us that from the very beginning, B Corp was involved in something unnatural, secretive, and deliberative. And that's exactly where the pattern starts. Now, if the Penumbra image gives us the shape of mystery, the newspaper gives us its first hard date. The newspaper is the second teaser that we received related to the Penumbra project. In 1975, a fire at a warehouse tied to the rising B Corporation made local news. On the surface, it reads like an industrial disaster, but underneath that, the details become much harder to ignore. There are rumors of unethical work practices, stories about screams heard from the warehouse at night, mentions of missing people last seen near the area. And there's a sense that whatever happened there had already made the building infamous long before it burned. By 1975, B Corp was already tied to a suspicious industrial site surrounded by secrecy, public fear, and signs that something inside was deeply wrong. Even if the public did not know the full truth, whatever Penumbra was, it was already beginning to spill into the outside world. And one detail matters more than it seems. The fire did not erase the mystery. It only exposed that there was a secret to hide. And then there's Charles Chuck. A burnt employee ID identifies him as a night guard tied to the mannequin facility. That alone would make him important, but the termination letter is where things become much harder to ignore. Dated June of 1975, the letter states that Chuck was being fired for repeated weapon discharges on site, destruction of company property, trespassing into restricted areas, and missing shifts. Read plainly, it sounds like misconduct. But read in context, it sounds like collapse. Restricted areas, gunfire, damaged property. A company already desperate to distance itself from whatever happened next. It is possible Chuck panicked. It's possible he saw something he could not explain. It's possible he was already standing at the center of the disaster by the time the company decided to cut him loose. But what we can say for certain is simpler and more important. Chuck is
Warning. This is an emergency broadcast issued for the Zorkus Industrial District. Multiple reports, movement, voices, and unidentified drainage infrastructure. Residents are advised to avoid. Do not respond to unfamiliar voices. Respond to unfamiliar voices originating below street level. If contact is made with marked B Corp, B Corp, B Corp, B Corp, B Corp, B Corp.
The facility itself may have been actually larger than the fire alone suggests. One of Isle's lost files includes a blueprint labeled Main Warehouse. It references multiple warehouse sections, access points, and even a safe room. Details that suggest a larger industrial complex rather than one isolated structure. This part should be treated carefully. A lost file is supporting evidence, not absolute proof on its own, and not every archival remnant should be treated like perfect canon. But it reinforces the pattern we keep seeing. This was not a normal warehouse, or at least it wasn't being used like one. Between the Penumbra material, the 1975 fire, Chuck's records, and the old warehouse files found in Isle, the picture becomes harder to dismiss. B Corp was tied to a serious facility, one built around logistics, security, secrecy, and something hidden behind restricted access. Whatever was happening there was not accidental, it was organized. Taken together, the earliest Isle-related evidence paints a clear but incomplete picture. By 1975, B Corp was already tied to a suspicious warehouse operation involving mannequins, restricted areas, and a project called Penumbra. A night guard named Charles Chuck was caught in the middle of it. Then came the fire, the rumors, the missing people, and the company's obvious attempt to protect itself from whatever followed. We still do not know every detail of what happened inside the facility. We do not know exactly what Penumbra was, and we do not know for certain how directly this connects to later island events. But this is where Isle's history stops feeling like a scattered mystery and starts leaving a paper trail. This is the beginning of something real, and whatever happened in that warehouse, it doesn't look like it ended there. Now, this is where the lore becomes more dangerous to talk about, because it's actually where the theories begin. I personally believe that Chuck later became something else entirely. Others believe the Penumbra incident was the first true step towards the later horrors tied to B Corp. There are theories that something survived the fire, that whatever was hidden in that warehouse did not die there, that the incident was not the end of a failed experiment, but the beginning of a much larger one. Some of those ideas are possible, even persuasive, but right now they remain theories. And honestly, that uncertainty might be the most unsettling part of it all. The beginning of Isle lore is not clean. It's fragmented, burned, half buried, as if whatever happened in 1975 was never meant to be understood all at once. If this is where Isle lore begins, then the next question is obvious. What survived Penumbra? Because the 1975 incident doesn't feel like a dead end. It feels like a trace. The first trace of something B Corp would keep chasing long after the fire was over. And if that's true, then the next step in the story is not just the warehouse itself. It's actually what came after.